All right. Hey, BIMS community. Welcome to my office hours. And I'm really excited about office hours today because we are talking about a couple of things that are going on at Black and Marine Science. And so, one of the big things that we are talking about today is our Blue Tech pitch competition. So something different about BIMS Week this year, our first one that's going to be in San Diego, we are dedicating an entire day to hearing from y'all. Hearing from the streets. We talk a lot about Black folks having these disparities, being the worst statistics, being disproportionately impacted. And so we are really trying to find ways to provide solutions. Do we always have to be statistics, or can we be solutions? And I think we have brilliant minds in our BIMS community. And I know one of y'all has the next solution that's going to make a huge impact on our community members. So I'm excited to be having this pitch as a first step for you to just share your ideas. You know, sometimes you have these ideas and you're scared to share them, or you think somebody's going to call you dumb, or somebody's going to steal your idea. So we're really trying to curate a safe space where your ideas can flow freely, but then we can also provide additional resources once we hear these ideas to actually go from ideation to implementation, right? To action. We won't want to just hear a bunch of ideas and they won't do nothing. It's like, oh, these are good. Let's get these going. So that's really the goal. So I'm excited to have DeMarcus here today, Dr. DeMarcus. Now, let me put some respect on my man name. Congratulations. He recently finished his PhD. Is it recently now? I feel like you a couple months in, or maybe a year.
I mean, technically it was 2024, but I did the official graduation. I went back and did an official one. So I guess.
Well, still, I'm glad to have you here to just talk about basic terms. What is BlueTech? What is this new space that we're seeing created? Because you were all there with the DEI wave and people was excited about that. Now it seems like this is a whole new wave, but I think this is the perfect space for our BIMS community. So I'm going to turn my camera off because I'm breaking up, but this is the floor for you. And then we'll come on back on and have a chat, answer any questions that people may have, because this is the space to talk about it in real time. All right, DeMarcus.
Cool. Thank you for having me. And I really appreciate it. This is something that's pretty cool that I think is definitely needed, just because the blue economy and blue tech, it's not too old. It's been about a decade. Was this 2025? Since 2009, it's been something that has been a thing that people or different countries really want because they see the ocean as an economic benefit. And so defining the blue economy, and I had sent an email to Jasmine about a while ago, or just a minute ago. And essentially, you can sum it up as utilizing the ocean and the marine environment for economic growth within the circular economy. So pretty much this circular economy of sorts, while also creating sustainable practices to address harm. But how you define blue economy differs between different countries or different people. Some may see the blue economy as a matter of values, as a sense of managing, protecting the ocean, while others may see it as a driver for wealth. But ultimately, it really depends on what is your drive for the blue economy and blue technology. And for blue technology, it's more related to how people pretty much developing innovative activities and techniques to monitor and utilize the ocean to benefit the blue economy and the socioeconomic development. And so essentially designing technologies or doing certain activities to support sustainable growth, or using it as a way to address a certain issue. And so not all blue technology needs to be something that is revolutionary in a way that's going to solve something huge. It can be something as simple as doing genetic testing to test for bugs for aquaculture or seaweed farming. And so that is kind of what blue tech is. And essentially, both of it is needed to create this opportunity to utilize the ocean as a source of resources, but also thinking about sustainability at the same time. So that's pretty much it.
No, thank you so much for that rundown, because I think that's where it starts. What are we even talking about, and how can we utilize it as a community? So I have a couple of questions since I've been thinking about this. So if you don't know, that's fine, but we can just have a discussion. So whenever you hear about a new field or space, ultimately I think about money. I think about there's resources that have to come from somewhere in order to fund this. So what are you hearing? What do you feel like this industry is valued at right now? What are the spaces that we could really get in?
I think the last number I saw was about in total, blue economy is about $1 trillion industry. And then depending on what industry or what sector of the blue economy or blue technology you're doing, that's also a benefit. So I just read that seaweed cultivation is about $1 billion. Um, so I think for right now, a lot of the conversation is about thinking about, well, let me phrase this, because a lot of the conversation is also tied in with politics, unfortunately. So at a point in time, a lot of the conversation was what kind of blue technologies can be utilized to address our climate issue. And as we're doing this and being sustainable, how does that connect with sustainable use of the ocean, right? So, for instance, if you're talking about fish, at one point we were overfishing the oceans, that became an issue. So people thought about fish farming and aquaculture. So that became a thing where we can have fish farms. Now, that in itself is already its own thing. That was an avenue to address overfishing. And so now it's kind of like fish farming is becoming a thing where it equates or eventually it's going to be the main source of fish globally. And so now the question is like, how do we continue to do other sustainable practices similarly? Um, I'm interested in marine carbon dioxide removal, and this is part of a huge decarbonization strategy that happened in the previous administration, where it's instead of using carbon-based energy, essentially using different alternatives like hydrogen and other things, and at the same time addressing our climate change issues by taking CO2 out the atmosphere, put in the ocean. So that was kind of been my little thing. Another aspect of ocean tech and blue economy is also ocean observation. And as marine scientists, you need a whole bunch of data to make inferences about something, right? So when it comes to ocean observation, one of the clear avenues of response for most people, because we have a lot of ocean data, but we don't always have it in the places that we need it. And as you think about new technologies and new opportunities, now you need more data for it. And so there is a pocket of ocean observation that is happening, but at the same time, the customers for it is a lot small. So usually the customers are governments and academic institutions. And so they're going to purchase from a certain group or whatever. And so it becomes a little bit more fierce. Now that we're kind of switching into a new administration that has its own values, most of its values is centered around energy extraction. So this is in the sense of oil or seabed mining, and anything that's considered alternative is not quite viewed or valued. The question is what is the future of other sustainable or technologies out there? That's all beneficial for the blue economy. For instance, if you're built a contraption to take energy out the ocean and use it for electricity or for sorts, is that something that is still will be seen as a value? And there's a difference between what the federal government wants versus what the market wants. And so the market may see it as, oh, we still want all these things. And so I think when it comes to this, and this is now outside of my knowledge space, is also talking to people in the industry. And so I have a friend that does energy policy, and we talk a lot about renewable energy. And he's told me, well, both administrations are one sided or two different sides, but the market still goes based off of what has been a long-standing conversation. So things shouldn't change as drastically. And so, if you're interested in a certain technology, if you're interested in a certain idea or getting into a certain space, I would definitely reach out to those companies and seeing like what is happening and what is going on, to so you can know how to pivot and move when it comes to that.
Okay. If anybody else has any questions and you're here now, feel free to ask DeMarcus, but we're also going to post this recording later. So if you have any questions, just reach out to us directly at BIMS. But another question, DeMarcus, is based on your research and what you've been seeing. What do you feel like are the major gaps in the blue economy, blue tech space? Like, you feel like there's something missing that we could be working on right now if we were able to identify it?
I think it depends on what you're looking at, but I think one of the big things is the ocean is an unpredictable place. And with that, things are consistent opposed to being on land where you know how things are going to be. And so, because of the ocean's natural process, that adds a lot of uncertainty when it comes to doing different technologies. So, if you're doing something with seaweed and you're really waiting for it to come on the land, well, you got to wait until like once a year to do that, right? Or anything relating to that. So the dynamics of the ocean is really what causes a lot of risk when it comes to different ocean technologies. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest barriers, but also one of the biggest benefits, because that added value of not quite knowing all the information, then the second part of this is like, what do we need so we can go from point A to point B? So do we need more ocean observation? Do we need to do more studies? Do we need to fund more research into this small initiative so that we can really scale it up in a way that it needs to be scaled? And so I would say the ocean itself causes a lot of uncertainty when it comes to really understanding about the product development of everything.
Right. No, you make an interesting point of like, what is the actual question? What is the solution? And so, just, for example, very basic. If you were to say, we do oxygen measurements, like, is there a need for another oxygen sensor, right? Like, okay, BIMS, we put together a team, we create this new oxygen sensor, but ours is maybe more affordable, communities can easily install it, something like that. Or is it like the oxygen sensor game is done, we don't need to go over there? Like, what do you feel about that perspective?
Yes, I was actually talking to somebody here. We wasn't talking about oxygen. We were talking about carbon dioxide removal, actually, but it related to oxygen. But one of the things, and I've used mostly Unisense, which is a company out in Denmark. I think we have a lot of oxygen measurements, and usually oxygen measurements can be calibrated with the wrinkler titration. And so we've gotten so good at the sensors to the point where, like, yeah, you don't really need to do the wrinkler titration, but you can, right? I think going into like the nanomole type of concentrations becomes an issue. But if you just think about from scientific research, and if you're in a place that's consistently anoxic, then you may want to have a sensor that can go all the way down to that level. But if you already know that below 65 micrometers, or even at 1 or 0 is really bad for whatever you're doing, then you don't really need to go that far. I think some of the interesting ones is nitrogen sensors that really don't operate as well under low oxygen conditions. I think at a point in time, methane sensors were kind of an issue because you actually need microbes to really have it to work properly. And so I think sensors are a cool avenue to get into. There's a lot of things that we can use to sample. So Unisense is a really cool company because not only do they make products for scientific research, but they also make products for just government operations. For instance, they made a sulfide sensor just for sewage waste treatment that was a little bit more easier and manageable, and was able to detect hydrogen sulfide, the nanomolar level, I believe. I think oxygen is still there, but also there's a big the space for oxygen sensors are like 2 or 3 companies. But how you utilize it is going to probably be different, right? If you're using it for doing, I don't know, seaweed cultivation, we go back to that, and somehow there's a hypoxia or something happening, then you may want something that's attached to your seaweed riggings or something like that. I don't know. Or you want something that's a long-term monitoring of your system for a very long time. That might be an interest.
Good perspective. I think you really got to the root of what I was trying to see, is that it's 2, 3 companies running these sensors. I think sometimes we can get into new spaces and feel like, oh, it's oversaturated. There's no room for us. Our ideas aren't going to be accepted, when it's really a couple of organizations who just keep hitting because nobody else is in the field. Like, nobody else to compete with, because we count ourselves out before we even start. So like, this is an information session, is really just also like mindset shifting and saying like, if you feel like you really can create something, let's do it, because this industry is not that saturated as they want us to believe. It's just there's a couple corporations who are just eating more than they need to be, and we could be there as well. So I think we really want to provide good solutions and not be fearful at all, because we can create the next best, biggest thing. I don't know if you got a response to that or.
No, I'm on it because, like, one of the things I always joked around and said that, like, if I want to get rich, man, I'm going to go and make some scientific equipment, some EpiCaps, and just go off that, because it's literally a few companies that's doing it. And then what's kind of kicker is, like, it's not always the technology itself that makes a difference, it's the customer service. And that's going to really push it further. So, like, there's an instrument that's here called a micro CT, and they had it for a year, and the company remembered, and he sent them like gifts and some chocolates and some cards and all that other stuff, and they're always responsive. So that's the other side of getting into it is that you always don't have to make the best technology. You can make something that's like a little bit more similar that may do something slightly better. If you can package it up and also provide really great customer service, I mean, you kind of win at the game.
Ding, ding, ding. Like that's it. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead, come off mute, raise your hand, put it in the chat. But this is the space to really just to get the ideation going, to talk about this new space that we're seeing so much opportunity. But per usual, we're not seeing a lot of Black founders, a lot of Black folks getting invested in. And we know that we have the opportunity to change that here at BIMS by starting with this BlueTech pitch, just so you can share your ideas in a safe space. Like, ain't trying to steal your stuff. We just want to try to make it work. And then we can go into these markets that aren't saturated and really get that same funding to scale that we need to bring these ideas to life. All right, well, I will move on to the next thing. We had 3 things to go over today. The next one is our big survey. So in tandem to these research projects and the new innovation, we also really are trying to amplify and organize y'all current projects. Because it's like, maybe you don't want to start something new because you already doing too much. And that's fine, because we can still use the power of the BIMS community to really help uplift these projects, but then also really help to get resources and then gain more support. Because a lot of our BIMS members now are either looking for ways they can volunteer and help other BIMS members projects. We also are working on really engaging with community members. So imagine you're doing a project in New Orleans and you by yourself because your lab don't want to work with you or some random stuff and you got to collect samples, and you could just go into the big network and find community members in New Orleans who can help you collect samples, and they just free that day. Like, they live in New Orleans, you don't got to pay for travel, like they're there, so really thinking more community engaged work to really amplify all the great work that you are already doing. So it doesn't need to be a new project. You need to just say, hey, here's my project. Here's where I'm doing it. There's room for BIMS members to help, and there's room for community members to help. That's all the survey is. I know y'all get tired of surveys, but that's all the survey is. And we want to map all of y'all so then people can see it's like, oh, wow, I'm in California, with BIMS community of California. Oh, wow, they're doing a bio blitz this weekend. I'm going to come. And now you get all of this help instead of having to always, be trying to things by ourselves. So Jasmine just dropped in the big survey, go ahead and fill it out. I have actually been trying to do better of giving people real time to do things. So I'm literally going to pause. Let me see, for like 5 minutes, because that's all it should take you to do it. So we can just go ahead and do it, because all of y'all are doing something. If you don't have an active research project, maybe you're doing science communication. We want to amplify the things that you're doing in your region and really get you connected to all the people who are working that you may not know, that we found and we organized. All righty, y'all. So hopefully you're able to just complete your survey with your current research, or just anything you're doing right now that you might need BIMS member support with, or community member support with, so we can get all these things on a map and get people connected.